Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast, where we shine light on powerhouse women in medicine who are rewriting what it means to heal. Today, I am thrilled to welcome a dear friend of mine and an amazing colleague, as well as a pioneer in preconception and also functional medicine. I'm here with Dr. Ann Shippy. She is board certified in internal medicine and a certified functional medicine physician based in Austin, Texas. So she came up and we're here in my podcast studio together, get to hang out and go for a long walk around the lake today and do some fun stuff. So, a little bit about Dr. Ann Shippy and what makes her really stand out as a pioneer in this field is that she really brings a uniquely scientific lens to her practice. She started as a chemical engineer at IBM before transitioning to medicine to solve her own health challenges. And she'll share a little bit about that with us today. And that journey led her to integrate engineering precision with medical insight to uncover root cause illness. Her expertise spans environmental toxicity to now leading in with what's called the Preconception Revolution. Actually, that is the title of her new book coming out in November. The Preconception Revolution, a science-backed path to your fertility and generational health. And anytime you're listening, you're like, well, I don't want to get pregnant. Anything we can do to support ovarian function and adrenal function supports our longevity. So everything we're going to talk about today has a point to help us with our longevity, our quality of life, so that our health span equals our lifespan, and then actually living proof that you can get better with age. Dr. Ann Shippy, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's so great to be here. I've been looking forward to this so much.
Me too. Me too. Well, let's get started with from engineer at IBM, a chemical engineer, like part of the toxic bucket. That's
well,
hoarding.
I think that's actually part of my health journey. Is I was in the manufacturing side of IBM, and even though they had pretty strict regulations, I think I got a pretty heavy toxic load between that and all the tuna fish I ate and the mouthful of amalgam fillings that I had. I think I'd really set myself up for health issues and didn't even realize it.
So by the environment you were in, so the chemicals that were being off-gassed, the new production lines, the electrical, and all of that.
All of that.
And was there mold?
I don't know that there was mold at that time. I had my run-ins with mold later in my life. Actually, the first one was probably the first. Well, actually, there probably was mold in my home environment around the time that I got sick. Looking back, we had built a new house and we'd had a couple of roof leaks and didn't know that it wasn't okay to just paint over it. That's what, at the time, that's what the builder did, is just painted over it. And we thought we would go on and be fine. But the big thing that happened to me was that I went on vacation, probably picked up a parasite, and it really triggered my gluten sensitivity and celiac disease. So I quit absorbing. And all the different doctors that I went to missed me. I went from doctor to doctor, and I got so skinny that my employees thought I was dying of cancer.
Oh, wow. And so what were some of the symptoms?
So massive digestive issues. Like I was just uncomfortable all the time and I wasn't absorbing. So I just really lost so much weight. And of course, then your hair falls out and you look terrible when you're not absorbing. So I wasn't getting the help that I needed from the doctors that I was visiting. So I started reading books and trying different diets and going to a nutritionist and an acupuncturist and a naturopath and this really interesting allergist. He started giving me food allergy drops, which is fairly common now. But back then it was like I had to drive 2 hours to see him. Oh, wow. And finally I got to feel really good. And
you were still working during this time?
I was still working. And I figured out how to get my health back. And then I woke up one morning and decided to go to medical school.
Really? You're just like, okay, I'm going to dig in. And
I literally woke up at like 3 a.m. when I came back from a business trip and waited for my husband at the time to get up so I could tell him that that's what I was doing next with my life. I had no idea what I was
what you were getting
embarking on.
into.
I had never taken a biology class, so even though I had all the chemistry and physics and all the things that you need to take the MCAT to get into medical school, I hadn't. I'd done no biology.
That's courageous.
And
That's
it was a 5-year, ordeal through the prerequisites and medical school and 3 years of residency. So all of a sudden my 30s were gone.
Wow. And then what did you discover like in the medical school curriculum and through residency that was like, okay, I'm still missing something. I need this functional medicine piece. What was the deviator to that?
Yeah, so I think medical school really trains us to do acute care medicine, but it really fails us at the chronic diseases. So we get very little about nutrition. There was nothing on the microbiome. There was really zero on how environmental toxins affect our bodies and how stress affects our bodies, like all the things that we do in functional medicine, where we're looking at how all these systems work together. Zero Zippo. But I had a baby in med school and a baby in residency. So when I got done, I knew that I was so happy to have the foundation with the traditional medicine, because you do learn so much about how the body works. It's just not a lot about how to truly heal it, and how to detect some of the really serious things like look for cancer and autoimmune diseases and those kinds of things. I think it was good to help with diagnosis. But I had these two little kids, so 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so I went into traditional internal medicine practice for a little over 2 years, and I developed a couple of autoimmune diseases. So
Oh, you're kidding. What autoimmune diseases?
I had Sjogren's, so I really couldn't have a conversation without having some gum or something in my mouth, and I couldn't wear my contacts. And on the workup with the immunologist, I also had antiphospholipid, which I'm sure you're very familiar with on the OB side. So that means that I had an increased risk for having stroke or, blood clots.
Miscarriage, infertility.
Which probably explained part of my issues, where I had some infertility. So then it helped me to realize I was off my path. And that's when I found functional medicine. So 20 years ago, it was at the time where the lectures were in a little classroom in Gig Harbor, Washington, with like 40 people.
Wow. So you were very early into functional medicine.
Just before they had a certification and all the modules to treat about the specialty areas. And at the time, that was like, okay, go out into the world, go spread your wings. You can do this. It's like, what? But they were right. Like, I left my internal medicine practice and started ordering the specialty tests to really look at the microbiome, the toxin levels, the mitochondrial function, all these things that we can do in functional medicine. And people started getting better.
Healing.
And my autoimmune stuff totally healed. No more Sjogren's, no more antiphospholipid. And I just rechecked it again. It's been 20 years and they're still all gone. Like all my autoimmune markers are perfect.
See, that's amazing. That really is amazing. And it's often our mess becomes our message. And that something like this brings us into functional medicine and changes our perspective, because we are taught in med school a systems approach. You look at the kidneys, you look at the heart, we're really not looking at the gut. We weren't looking at the gut very much, and nutrition was a very small part. And I went to an osteopathic medical school. We had nutrition modules, but it wasn't emphasized. The gut microbiome courses in the early 90s when I went to med school. So early 90s, and we weren't talking about it. We were still like, okay, genetics is going to be the big reveal. And I think that really shifted the conversation when we got, our genetic code, when we broke the genetic code and realized, okay, well, we've got about as many DNA as the earthworm or something like that, right?
Well, and we were taught at the time that your DNA is your destiny. And what's so amazing that now that we know is we can influence how our genes behave so much.
So much. There's so many things that affect that. And I know in your book, you also talk about the fertility factors that affect us and what's causing. You were on an interview here in Dallas today, and they started off the conversation with talking about Elon Musk talking about fertility as the next big epidemic that we're going to have. What are you seeing, and what drove you to really focus on this preconception revolution, or the fertility issues that people are having? And I would say, like, you have to start preparing for pregnancy as early before you even start thinking about having a baby. I think it's all these things we do to clean up our system, to have healthy hormones, healthy hormonal balance, and healthy pregnancies and healthy babies, because we're passing on not just our genetic code, right? We're passing on our mitochondrial information and DNA. And so there's so much about that. And I really want to dig into this with you, because this is such a passion project for you. It's something I've always been really interested in.
I have goosebumps.
It's so good.
We're so aligned
right?
in all of this. Yeah.
It's so important. And I was telling Anne earlier that I had read this recently, The Handmaid's Tale, and then I binge watched the series on TV. I'm telling you, they started off by saying how the issues with fertility caused all this infertility. There were no new live births in 6 years or something. And so these handmaids become the, unwilling wombs of the elite. And it was due to toxins and birth control pills and these other whole list of things. It's really, really scary if you watch it. But anyway. But we don't want that to happen. So we're here to say, okay, we're help us and help our generations that follow.
And this really is an issue for everyone. Like, we're talking about it for people that want to start or grow their family, but it's for the grandmothers and grandfathers of these children. We definitely have a massive issue. It's 1 in 6 couples, as you know, are dealing with infertility, and that means not getting pregnant in a year. So trying for a year. 1 in 6 couples. It looks, and it's global. It's not just US. It looks like it's 50-50. It's 50% female, 50% male, and sometimes both. So it's, and then a lot of times I do want to talk a little bit about the male issue. Though definitely. I know most of your listeners are women, but it's such an important piece of this puzzle. And I want to pause for a minute and just say, I wrote this book because there's hope. Mm-hmm. Like, we're painting a pretty desolate picture, like this ramping up of infertility. It's really scary for couples wanting to start or grow their families. And then the children's health crisis is also so alarming. It's 1 in 31 children that are 8 years old, because that's about the time that they say that is a good cutoff for estimating the whether children have an autism diagnosis. So 1 in 31 in 2022. In 2020, it was 1 in 36. Wow. And so the autism rates are escalating, and we can't just say it's a change in diagnosis. In 2 years, we're not getting that much better at diagnosing autism. So we're 8 years behind in what we're predicting. So I think for people wanting to have or grow their family, just even looking at those statistics is very scary and very alarming. And then you throw in the autoimmunity that we're seeing in children, where you throw in the cancer, the obesity, the mental health. It's like really scary to think about what's happening to our children, both individually and our families, and then as a collective. How is this actually going to impact the world that they grow up in?
Well, I mean, I think, it definitely is an issue. And I think because I had retired pre-pandemic, came back into practice post-pandemic. I mean, post-pandemic medicine is different. Really, the rise in autoimmune, the rise in infertility, the rise in hormone imbalance, the rise in psychoneuroimmunologic issues. So we're turning the tide with these conversations. So thank you. Let's go ahead and start with male factor fertility.
Oh,
yeah. Let's start with that, because I think that's so important. And also, like, you can see significant improvements when you address this.
It's so exciting, actually. Yeah. And I think it's a little intimidating for men when they hear these statistics. Like, the average sperm count has decreased by 50% in 50 years, and it's going down 2% a year now.
Man.
So
yeah, that's scary.
yeah, for all of us, right? It really, this handmaiden story is, it's like if you extrapolate that, it's like IVF is the only option. And I think that IVF isn't a good option for women, and we can come back to that if you want
Okay,
to.
sure.
But the exciting thing for men is that there are these sperm tests now, sperm QT and PS sperm, where we can look at even more detail than just what the
The
sperm count
morphology
is.
and
Yes. And so the PS sperm looks for something called phosphatidylserine, which is an indicator of how well the sperm will penetrate into the egg and actually fertilize. And then the QT sperm test looks at um, the methylation and epigenetic factors that also predict the health of the future baby. So, not just
okay.
whether they're going to be fertile, but what's the time capsule that the sperm are passing on to the egg.
Oh, that's
Yes.
interesting. That's really interesting. So, yeah, because I just used to look under a microscope and that was my sperm analysis, semen analysis. So, okay, it's good that we have these. Now, when you see an abnormal function, what is your approach? Well, how do you counsel a couple? How do you counsel a male on, okay, this is what we need to do for you?
Mm-hmm. So, part of what I'm asking people to do is actually press the pause button and do this work for 3, 6, 12 months before they even start trying whether they are fertile or not, because we want to get those things optimized.
Right.
So we're working on things like reducing toxicity, so including alcohol, nicotine, and other substances. We want to get
Right.
those out.
Nicotine outside of smoking. My nicotine spray right here.
Well, I think that the data is unclear on whether that can affect
Yeah,
the
don't risk
sperm.
it. Right.
So, and there's a new study that just came out within the last week that showed the impacts of air pollution on
Mm-hmm.
sperm.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to do things like put air filters in the rooms that we spend the most time in and get
I have
filtered
one right over
water.
there, by the way. Good air doctor.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
um, and then being conscientious about food, what's happening with blood sugar, because the both men and women can pass on some epigenetics for that would increase the risk for diabetes. So
In their child.
yes, in their child. So wearing a continuous glucose monitor and really understanding what it takes to have good blood sugar, whether you're in the diabetic, pre-diabetic, or just trying to give the baby the best shot possible.
So it's turning on the healthy genes and turning off the unhealthy genes because they're getting the same genetic. I mean, they're getting their genetics passed on, but it's the epigenetics. It's like, okay, do we turn on to support us to have the, most healthy, highest quality, that we can or are we passing on where now this child's at risk for obesity? These are some of the things. I think one of the things I definitely saw, now being in practice for over 30 years as an OBGYN, but I remember having a client, she was 16 and she was pregnant and she was giving up her baby for adoption. But like during her entire pregnancy, she ate Chick-fil-A. That was it. She ate chicken nuggets the entire, some form of chicken nuggets the entire pregnancy. And I was like, oh my God, all that alpha linoleic acid, right? Is there anything else you could eat? And I've been able to see that child over the years, and she struggled with so much obesity and insulin resistance, and really had to struggle. And and you put these pieces together retrospectively, and you're like, okay, well, what happened? Because that girl had amazing genetics. She was from a very healthy, intelligent family, and and no one was obese, but like how much did that, and the stress, of course, of being a 16-year-old pregnancy, can't neglect the impact on stress for her physiology and the infant's physiology. So some of the supplements, like for me, for male factor, infertility, it's all those things like, wear your boxer shorts, don't get hot down there. clean air, clean water,
Get the
exercise,
plastics out. Plastics are such a
detox,
big thing.
not drinking out of plastic
Mhm.
bottles. I was looking at a total toxic burden test the other day, and her phthalates and bisphosphonates and parabens were out the roof. So the chemicals we're putting on our body, really cleaning all that up, from shaving cream to soaps we're using, all of that good stuff, shampoos, etc. Like, if you can't eat it, don't use it.
Exactly.
That's a good motto. And then, of course, diet and nutrition. But for supplements, what are some really key supplements?
So I really like for both the man and the woman to do 3, 6, 12 months. The longer the better. So getting started early,
Do you start them with
before the first
detox?
pregnancy or between pregnancies even.
Yeah.
So I believe in gentle detoxification. So I like to use something called liposomal glutathione.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like to use very simple binders. We've got one called Zeo binder that's a mix of a bunch of things that kind of help to pull the toxins out. And then the supplement phosphatidylcholine
Essential.
is
Had
my
mine this
desert
morning.
island. Like if I was on a desert island and I could have one thing dropped into me just from a health standpoint, that would be the most important thing. And especially for, I mean, it's really good for men and for the sperm, but also for during the conception period, prenatally, to help with brain development and neurological development. It's just one of those essential
Gee.
nutrients.
Well, and phosphatidylcholine is part of every cell membrane. Explain about what it's doing and how it also helps with detox.
Yeah. So when we take it orally, I think of it as being the building block to make cells. We need that to hold the fatty acids into the cells so the cells can do their job and have good receptors to know all the different hormones and chemical messengers in the body. It also is that store for like building the new cells for the baby. But then from a detox standpoint, it'll actually kind of knock some of the toxins that are fat soluble out of the cell membrane so that then your body can get rid of them rather than being in the cell membranes and causing issues. And then also it helps with something called methylation, which is also just a really important aspect of preparing for pregnancy, is getting your body so that it does repair better and clearing the environmental toxins out with methylation. So that would be methylated folic acid and 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate and B vitamins generally to help with that.
Carnitine.
Oh my
Carnitine
God.
was a big one for me. Yeah. Carnitine, 1,500 milligrams. Like, that's the doses that I recommend, male or female, but definitely. And for brain health, there were studies early on in the early 2000s that looked at, I forget if it was, I'm sorry, one of the Scandinavian countries, and using carnitine in pregnancy, and then measuring long-term neurologic function of the child. And then just really talked about in pregnancy how carnitine can really help neurologically with building blocks.
I think you're probably like me too, and you've like scoured the planet for what are the best forms of these supplements, like what's super clean and in the form that the body will actually take it in and do the most with it. There's also
so L-carnitine or straight carnitine?
L-carnitine.
L-carnitine.
And I found it in a liquid inside a capsule. I'll share
Okay.
some with you. It's like one of my favorite things because there's something about the way that it actually absorbs that a lot of times you can even feel it within a few days of taking it. Like your little mitochondria are working better to make energy when you take it.
That's interesting because, the liquid one, Designs for Health, makes a liquid carnitine, Carniclear it's called. And I used that for years, but sometimes a patient would come in after using that and say, I smell like fish. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, bizarre. Did you ever have that experience?
No.
Yeah, no. But so these in capsules, it will drop down deeper and be better absorbed. Interesting.
And then back to phosphatidylcholine. I know you do this with some of your patients too, but we can also offer it in an IV form. So when we take the phosphatidylcholine in the oral form, it provides those building blocks that we talked about. When we do it IV, it's like sending the body through a car wash. And it even can help to clean up the little toxins that are sticking to the DNA that are causing some negative epigenetic changes. So for people that have access to that, the IV is also very nice.
How long of a course do you recommend? Because we do the PK protocol in our clinic here in Dallas.
I see a difference in even when I
What?
use the labs to look, even 10, just 10 can make a difference. The full course for most people would be 40, but that's a lot
That's a lot.
and it
10
gets very
feels
expensive.
maximum to me.
But I feel 10 makes a huge difference and sometimes even less.
Okay, so 10 separate IV infusions and with the PK protocol. The key thing too, now we're finding with any of the, I don't want to call phosphatidylcholine necessarily a fatty acid, but it's kind of fatty acid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with any of these like omega 3s, phosphatidylcholine, it's like almost we have to reduce the oxidative stress on the body first. So we're not creating more oxidation problems. And this is really new in my sphere of thinking. So I'm always like omega 3s douse the fire, and we'll keep working on inflammation is always part of my, foundational plans is anti-inflammatories, polyphenols, all those good ingredients to support our immune system and detox. But now there's conversations around taking omega 3s and someone with high, for example, oxidative stress or lipid peroxides or MPO levels, that you're actually feeding the fire. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that part of when we're looking for the root cause, like, well, where is the inflammation coming from? Mm-hmm. There's very detailed labs that we can do to look for levels of inflammation more than just a traditional model. So I'm sure you do things like the lipid peroxidases, the hydroxy 2-deoxyguanosine. I know. So like in a NutriVal,
yeah,
and then through the Boston Heart, where we can look at things like an LPPLA2 with the cholesterol and the MPO. So when I see a pattern where there's a whole lot of inflammation that maybe we could feed it with something like fatty acids, then we have to go find the root cause of it. Is it a low-grade infection? Yeah. Is it a mold or other toxic exposure that the body's like, oh my God, we are basically trying to move the tribe out of here? Then I think part of the issue is that just adding the antioxidants isn't going to do much.
Yeah.
To help solve the real problem.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Any other supplements you think for male factor, and then we'll move into female factor and supporting egg production?
I love things like CoQ10 and MitoQ and all the things that feed the mitochondria for men, because the
nitric oxide support.
Nitric oxide is huge. Yep, that's a really good one. Astaxanthin has some good research for sperm. And then even things like vitamin D. But what's so fascinating as I was doing all the research for the book is a lot of the same things that help with the sperm help with the egg and help with hormone balancing and all the things.
Makes sense, right? Because you're supporting testicular function, turnover, cellular production, and same thing with the egg. So where would you, like, what else for ovarian function? I will tell you, like early in my, a practice in 2023 post-pandemic, and a client who had COVID vaccines times 3, had a beautiful child pre-pandemic, and then had a miscarriage and then diagnosed with infertility, and her AMH was 0.03. And so the fertility clinics wouldn't touch her. They're like, oh, nope. And she's 41. And so I was like, okay, well, first we just have to create a body as healthy as possible, and then we'll address. Like I'm with you, 3, 6, 9 months, something like that. If pregnancy is 9 months, preparing for pregnancy, let's take that 9 months ahead of time, and
don't let being 41 freak you out about it. Like still,
no. And that AMH, don't let that freak you out. That's just telling you, okay, we've got some work to do, but I think we'll do what we can to improve your body, decrease the inflammation that's going on, and improve ovarian function. And so literally in 6 months, she was pregnant. Yay. She was pregnant in 6 months, but we did a series of IVs for her. It was IV vitamin C and glutathione, definitely the carnitine, the post-COVID vaccine protocol. We did, she did everything.
What do you do for which?
So I used different things, but definitely nattokinase. I liked when we had the availability of the Tolavid. So it's been hard to get now. So the Tolavid, everyone gets Mighty Maca, phosphatidylcholine.
Yeah.
That's key. I cycled
Adrenal
her on
support.
progesterone, so on my balance cream, just gentle, right? So you don't have to be. I mean, the IVs are a little aggressive, but we wanted to move
And
quickly
I don't want
on that.
your listeners to think you have to do IVs.
Right.
Like they can be helpful, but
You don't
so
have
much
to.
can happen without it, even in
Yep.
your 40s. Yeah.
Yep. And you can do oral vitamin C to bowel tolerance. So there's a lot we can actually do. But and that's not an isolated story. So we saw people get with menopause and early menopause diagnoses, and those are reversed. But stress is crazy on the body, and this inflammation and immune attack from COVID, whether it's injection or infection, has to be addressed. If we're suffering from it, we have to address that.
And you want to get that under control because you're going to definitely pass on those epigenetics to the baby. So even if you get to the point where you're good enough to get pregnant, it's so much better to take it all the way to really make sure that things are solved. So you probably do the same thing where you are like, okay, let's give it this period of time, and you have to use condoms to make sure, because we keep having people that don't take us seriously on that and then get pregnant after 2 or 3 months rather than giving it the full 6 or 12 months.
But it's important to detox the body and to heal the body. So in your book, so you wrote the Preconception Revolution, for this crisis and this is really significant and a passion project for you. And tell me what makes this different and unique, because you have a whole plan in here. And I do, right on the cover of the book, for those of you that are able to watch, you see the egg receiving the sperm. And before we go into the book, because this is an area of fascination, we used to believe, okay, 20 million sperm or whatever are needed to get just one sperm into the egg, and that's that strongest, most virile sperm. But actually, the egg has been shown to be selective energetically to maybe it's calling in the sperm. I mean, what's up with that?
Well, and maybe it has to do with the soul coming into the existence
embryo?
Because we know that there's some light that happens with the whole reaction when the sperm gets into the egg, a zinc reaction. So it's like a little spark of light. So maybe it's actually the soul picking the egg and the sperm.
Well, I can tell you, when I got pregnant with Ava, she was definitely, I prayed so much for her. So that's why she's named after Mother Mary, Ava Marie. So but I knew that day, I knew at that time,
chills.
Yep, I knew. I felt something. I didn't feel it with my other children, and I definitely felt something. I felt that spark. I was like, it just happened.
Amazing.
It was not the orgasm. Nope, it was not that.
It was her soul coming in.
That was it. Something. She was waiting, knocking on that door.
So that is the dedication for the book, is to these precious souls that want to come in to be part of humanity, and that they want strong bodies. They want strong bodies. So the book is written for the parents, the men and the women that want to really know what to do in advance, that give that gift to their child to pass on the strongest, healthiest physical bodies so that they can really shine their lights.
No, I love it. I love it. So tell us what they'll learn in going through that book. Because you take a complete functional medicine approach. I mean, when you talk to Anne, there's so much science here, right? There's so much, and plus clinical expertise. You work 14 hours days, 4 days a week, so many patient stories and examples in real life. That just, it's not in theory, y'all.
I'm so lucky that I've gotten to do this for 20 years. And, some of the patients, they'll bring me their children that are sick with autism or autoimmunity or whatever they're dealing with, and then the parents, and then sometimes even the grandparents. So I get to see this thread of how the genetics play, how the epigenetics play, and the family dynamics. And I just have so much hope over these terrible statistics that we're seeing about fertility.
We don't have
and
to be
children's
part
health.
of the statistics, y'all.
No.
We don't have to be part of these statistics.
That when we do the things that really make our bodies healthy, the, handling the stress with meditation and neurofeedback and those kinds of things. We eat super clean. We take the supplements to strengthen our body. We detoxify. There's a long list.
Yeah,
That's why it's 600 pages, all very documented with the research, but it's what I wish I had had for my kids.
Mm-hmm. And it's what aspiring grandparents can read too. I know I'm really to devour this book and think, okay, pass on this knowledge, like the oral traditions, oral knowledge, we can pass it on to our busy kids and give them this information too, and really don't want them to suffer. I suffered with fertility. I failed 6 of the highest doses of injectable fertility treatments time and time again. And like that is just emotionally is heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And so we don't want our youth to suffer. And there's so much you can do about it. And plus you dig into the nuances, the autoimmune issues, the red flags there, what we need to dial in, mold toxicity, environmental toxins. And I recently had a conversation about EMF and blue light. How much is that playing into fertility?
I couldn't find a lot of data on that. So there's not anything in the book on that. And I think that's probably the addition number 2. I do think that I talk about radiation exposure in airline flights and really encourage people to start limiting their airline flights. But other than that, we've got to figure this out, because I think we're doing this. Basically, we're doing an experiment on humanity with this 5G and whatever's coming next.
Right.
And this combination with environmental toxicity, because by having the environmental toxins build up in our body that we don't even realize are building up until we test, I think that throws off our cells energetically, and then we put the 5G in there.
And like keep cell phones away from our body parts. Don't put them on our body, not in our pockets, not, really, I think that makes a difference. There were studies in Japan that looked at testosterone and blue light exposure in young men. Mm-hmm. And they found a linear relationship between low testosterone related to increased hours of cell phone usage. So that blue light attributed to blue light exposure causing this low testosterone. And we're seeing men, young men in their teens and early 20s with low testosterone. And that's like here 20 years from now, what percentage of infertility will that result in? So again, this is a big human experiment. Yeah. So,
and we probably all, I've been doing so much phone, computer to get this book written in the last 2 years.
And I told Anne she's got to go do a dark retreat. I'm telling you, then her brain will make its own light.
But I really do think it's something that all of us could be doing to help our health, is to have a lot less screen time and phone time.
Yeah, so true. Okay, tell everyone where they can find your book and how they can.
And shippymd.com or the Preconception Revolution. We're on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual places that you can find the book. And if you go onto the preconceptionrevolution.com website, we'll have all kinds of extra tools to help you with the process.
Thank you. Okay, so AnneShippyMD.com. Check it out. The Preconception Revolution, released November 18th. So perfect to be handing out over the holidays, diving into it and just saying, okay, well, in general, if this is going to help with fertility, it's going to help with longevity. And what are the pieces that I'm missing? What are additional things I haven't thought about that I could be doing or staying with? And what's the science behind it? And ultimately, it's like, Anne and I are really so alike in this way. It's like we have to practice medicine that makes sense. We just have to practice medicine that makes sense. We have to live in a way that also makes sense, and reduce the toxic burden, reduce the clutter,
and we both learned the hard way. We got here the hard way. We had to have our our run-ins with our bodies and what it really needed. So
Right.
we're committed.
We're committed. We're committed to help you. So definitely check out her book, The Preconception Revolution. I'm telling you. And this has been a fascinating episode. It's so important and reinforcing the key things that make a difference. And we want to see the generations that follow not to suffer from the things that we created as adults. There's enough maternal guilt to go around, right?
For sure.
There's so much. So to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. And if you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe. You can subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you listen to the podcast. Rate it and share it with your girlfriends who want their medicine both smart and soulful. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and live your fullest health. Thank you. This is Dr. Anna Cabeca. God bless.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.